Well, hello, everyone. We're back. I had to rush over here to the studio, and now we're going to have our post show where we break down the service and really just kind of share our thoughts and have a conversation about it. So, before we go any further, though, if you didn't know already, I'm Perry, one of the pastors here, and we have with us today
Andy.
I'm Austin.
I'm Darren.
Awesome. So, I got a question for you. I always start with this.
Mm-hmm.
What was the highlight of the service for you guys? And if it wasn't the message, don't worry, I won't cry.
Good. I'll give you my low light is that you picked the current Voltron instead of the classic 1980s Voltron that spawned my love for the franchise. As soon as I saw it, I was like, what is this? And then Steve goes, leave it to Perry to pick the wrong Voltron.
Okay. So here's the thing, Andy, is I'm a little bit young. I was not around in the 80s. Tell me what's the difference between good Voltron and new one.
It's just the art style is what I grew up with. The new one is actually a really good series, but the old one is just classic when I grew up.
Well, here's the reason why I chose the new one.
It was a very striking image.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like the quality of the pictures from the old one were not great, and they probably would have been super fuzzy.
And Steve would have been equally mad about that. So you're correct. Okay.
So I had to pick my poison there.
No,
so since you shared your low light, what was your highlight?
My highlight was thinking about all the various big serves have been on and serving in general, and how sometimes it's like, oh, this is gross, or like stuff you don't want to do or you normally wouldn't do, and you do it because God's called us to do it. So that same token, I was like, yeah, and kind of like you said, what we'll be talking about more is serving and things like that. But it really got me thinking. I was like, man, there's been some crazy big serves where I've carried things and thrown away things and left garbage bags on my back that I did not plan on.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I remember doing a big serve once at a house, and it was just incredibly overgrown.
Yep.
And so we had to do landscaping stuff, but then also finding lots of, fun pieces of trash and things like that that had been there a very long time. And it was like, ew.
Yep.
But they really appreciate it.
Exactly.
Because they did not have the ability to do it on their own.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
You leave feeling like a sense of, oh, that's what God wanted me to do today. It's not like, it's weird. It's not like a personal, like, I did it. It's more of I did this for God. And there's a different feeling about it.
For sure. Absolutely. Austin, what was your highlight?
It's hard pressed to be able to find a Sunday in which worship is not the highlight for me. Obviously, incredibly involved with that. But this week was a little bit different. We had the opportunity to have a couple of different other people lead worship today, which was really awesome to be able to do that. Darren, thank you for stepping up and be able to take the lead on a couple of those songs.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good to be able to get into that presence of God and be able to just give back our all for Him. There's some stuff going on behind the scenes that my dad had to pull himself out to try to help fix. So we had to step up and be able to make everything happen, and I was it's just awesome to be able to do that each and every single week.
Yeah, you guys sounded great, but shout out to Bob. Bob really brought it. He was like,
dude, that last song.
I could feel that.
Yeah. That felt good.
What are you, Darren?
I would say my highlight, I liked when you were talking about just presenting yourself as a servant, like going in without having like, hey, like I want to get this out of service. Like I want to get this out of doing what I'm doing for the church. It's like, no, you're there to serve and you're there to, not be about yourself. And I think that's tough, cause we have that predisposition to the selfishness as humans, this is about me, what do I get out of it? Why don't I get this? Why don't I get that? And I love what you're talking about. It's like, you just show up, like for worship, like if you don't sing anything, like you're just still there serving. And in all honesty, it took me a long time to get to that point where I was, cause it's just part of that stage presence thing where you're just like, it's tough to not be about yourself sometimes, but it took me years of doing worship. I probably went in and out, but like to really get to a real serious point where I would just show up and be like, let me know what you want me to do.
Yeah.
I don't care. Whatever you want, just tell me and I'll do it.
Right.
And sometimes I don't like it, but sometimes, but I do it, it's like, it's what you're asked to do is how you serve. Yeah. It's, you don't serve because you get stuff out of it. You serve because you want to help the church and you want to serve the people. So,
Yep.
You know,
I
it's so
appreciate it.
hard, right? In our culture, because we just have such a culture of consumerism,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it's like it is all about us and like you have to serve me. And you know, and there's maybe a period of time in your walk with Christ where that's natural, it's normal, but it really does show a sign of spiritual growth.
Right.
When you've gotten beyond that to say, okay, I'm here because I fit here, but I'm not here because it's all about me.
Yep.
Mhm.
I'm here because I fit and I can help contribute, and we're in this together, and we can worship together. And I agree. Obviously, with the message, it's something that I care about deeply too.
Yeah.
So the highlight for me really was either the very last song with Bob. Just he got into I've never heard him sing like that.
Me neither,
He got
right?
into this soulful, like I was like, that's
It's like
cool.
a different Bob.
I was like,
so that was
like,
cool.
is he up there levitating right now?
Yeah. So that was cool because you could just tell that he really put a lot of work into it and
Yeah,
that he was really giving it his all. And then I also liked the pre-show, just messing around with Elizabeth. That was fun.
Oh, it was great. Always a good time. Yep.
You know, if you didn't check that out, you have to go check it out. I'm not going to spoil it for you. So check that out. You can get it separately, or you can just scroll all the way back to the beginning and watch it there. It's a lot of fun. But
I do have. Can I say one more highlight? Because-
absolutely.
So I appreciate this morning Andy complimenting my shoes
Mm.
because
He
I am a
noticed.
minimalist, and if I'm sure other people have noticed, I have like one pair of shoes that I wear on stage.
I was like, he's not
He
in
said,
slides.
"Hey,
and he's
you
not in
do."
those gray shoes. Hey,
You
cool.
do
got
own
some
pairs
shoes,
of
man.
shoes. I appreciated that. I was like, I wonder if
That's
anyone
funny.
will notice.
See, it really does make a difference when you guys notice that other people have done something a little bit different.
Little things, man. It goes a long way.
I
Yeah.
tell you what, though, I'd wear the same exact pair of shoes. It doesn't matter whether it's on stage, off stage. I've had this same pair of shoes since middle school, and I plan on taking these things to the grave with me.
Nice.
You know, you did a really good job picking shoes in middle school, but because there are very few models of shoes that just keep the same design forever.
Yeah.
Especially when
Yeah.
we were in middle school. They don't even
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
those anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're fortunate there.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you would have picked just
Time to write Adidas and cancel the Samba line.
There's a guy who will really have to make some changes in his life. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to service.
Yeah.
I would like to hear a story because all of you are very involved in serving here at this church. You guys all use your gifts and your abilities for what God has called us to do here. I'd like to hear a story of how you guys have served in a way that perhaps people haven't seen you serve. You know, because, you know, the two of you, especially, you serve all the time on stage singing. And Andy, you serve all the time through the pre-show. But what's a way that you've served in the past that you have really felt was fulfilling, that you saw God use you in a cool way?
It sounds lame to just go right to big serve but that's really the time when we're not seen by many people. There's a small group that's there. We're off doing our things. And this was a couple of years ago. And like I said, we were down in a dark basement, and this fridge was heavy because it was full of old food that had spoiled. So I had to clean it out because I'm like, well, I'm not going to carry all this up. It was heavy. It was chock full. And it was one of those things like afterwards, myself, and I think this was back when Mike Elkins was even still here.
Oh, wow. That was a long time
It was
ago.
a long time ago. That's why it's like stuck with me, because he and I kind of bonded over this, because I'm like, we got to throw all this away, don't we? He goes, probably. I was like, so we're down there throwing it away, and then we carried it out together, and then he went off and did something, and the homeowner came out, and they were like, I just don't know why you did that, because I wouldn't even want to do that for myself, let alone. And I was like, well, I'm not here. You know, that's what God would want me to do.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that. It sounded cheesy at the time, but it was one of those things where I'm like, no, that's what he wanted me to do.
Absolutely.
And that one kind of stuck out because it was just me and them. And usually, you know, big serve, you can find yourself in groups, or the like people come out or help, and there's all around, but very rarely do you find yourself just one-on-one in a place like that. And it was something they truly wanted to have done, but even they were having a tough time doing it. And God just was like, that's what you're here for today, Andy. You're gonna almost barf 3 or 4 times. Xander would have lost it, because Xander has a weak constitution. Can't even feed the dog food, let alone clean out a fridge. So yeah, that was one time that really stands out to me, because they were so appreciative and just thanked me a million times. I was like, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. How about you guys?
I would say, I don't know. it's probably what takes up 90% of my other time at the church, but it's small groups for us. Is that's just one thing I think people don't see very often, just because it's obviously not on the stage or in the church. But we host a couple small groups a week, one on Sunday, one on Thursday, and we're to the point now. Shameless plug. We're at the point now where we are like over capacity for both of our groups. So we need some leaders, people out there like, hey, step up. Come on, let's go. We need some small group leaders to step up. And, I would say this is one thing, where you were saying the Holy Spirit gives you those talents.
Yeah.
And I did not know I was a small group person. I was not a speaker in front of people. It made me nervous. Like, if you give me a guitar, I'm comfortable, but like speaking in front of people and driving conversations was never, I was shaking nervous. Like when I first started doing this show, my leg would shake. And if you go back, look, you probably notice there, some people but God gave me that confidence and that courage throughout the process, but it was something I never really thought I had.
Yeah.
So that I know there's a lot of people out there feel the same way. Like, oh, I can't be a small group leader. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Well,
And-
based on the would you rathers of the beginning, if you haven't seen the message yet, when you sit in there and I do a would you rather game, there were not very many hands up who were interested in leading a Bible study in their home.
Yeah.
So we got to train some people.
Don't be
up.
scared.
We got to
Don't be
identify some
scared.
people. We would be happy
Yeah.
to help you with that for sure.
You can
Yeah.
do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I really relate to that specifically because with me, I feel the exact same way. That was not what I went to school for. That was not necessarily the thing that I thought that I had the greatest talent in. But for the past little bit, a couple of years or so, I've had the privilege to be able to help lead a group of young adults on Tuesday nights over here in a small group. And there's a lot of different learning curves that you have to be able to go through to be able to do that. And I think I think we have to, as followers of Christ, as people who want to go ahead and share out the message of Jesus Christ, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and
Yeah.
doing things that are outside of our comfort zone. I think when we get to this topic of serving, it can often be to a place of what is convenient and what is comfortable for me.
That's
Yes.
true.
And the reality is we shouldn't be in that mindset, because then we're not stretching, then we're not growing, then we're not actually making a tangible, real, costly sacrifice.
Yeah.
Rather, it would be more of a convenient sacrifice, which still absolutely should do all of that stuff that's convenient, that fits within the schedule, but try to find different aspects that are a little bit challenging or a little bit scary, because that's when you can see a lot of growth within
Yeah.
yourself. And that's where I've seen a lot of growth within myself with communication skills. I give a lot of credit back to when I was in my TA days. As for those of you who have not heard the story, I was going to grad school, go for statistics, and I got offered the position a teaching assistant. I didn't know what a teaching assistant was at the time. Sign me up; they were going to pay for my school. Sure thing. We get into the orientation; it's 2 weeks beforehand, and I look at the list and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to assist with some teacher or something or whatever. I look, my name is the only name that's on there. It's me that has to teach a college level class. And I had no idea what to do. But what that did is that forced me into an environment where it doesn't matter. You have to go out and find a way to be able to go and serve these people. You have to go and find a way to teach them and be the professor. And I think when it comes to serving, we just have to go out and do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not a sense of I need to build myself up until I get to this certain point.
Right.
Go out and do it, because the time in which people need to be served is now.
And
Go ahead.
Sorry. I want to add to that because I think a lot of people think, well, I have to be a point where I have to be perfect at this. You don't.
Yes.
You have to be willing to fail and willing to do something uncomfortable and fail and still be like, hey, look, I'm growing, I'm learning, explain that to the people in your groups. But shout out to Tony Sancato. When I was first starting to speak in front of people, he told me something that will probably stick with me for the rest of my life. He said, public speakers aren't public speakers until they've done it 47 times.
Oof.
And that helped me a lot, because I thought, well, I'm not at that point. I'm like down here, but that's okay. And you have to be willing to fail and learn and grow, because you're just like, none of us are perfect. So to add to that, I think,
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember when I first started preaching and where I am now, and just there's definitely has been a ton of growth, and I still have a ton more growth to do. But I look back at some of those old messages. I'm like, why did I say or do that?
Oh,
Like, what was I thinking?
It's almost like watching our like kids struggle through something. You're like, you know what? You got to figure it out yourself.
But something to add to this idea of leading a small group. Maybe not everyone is gifted in leading a small group per se. Although I agree with you, I think that we need to step out. We need to expand our horizons. But the thing is that when it comes to making disciples, which is one way, leading a small group is one way you can do that, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Making disciples is not a, hey, you get to do it, but you don't.
Yes.
Like we all are supposed to make disciples. So if you're not going to lead a small group, that's fine. But you should be actively trying to help other people grow closer to Jesus, learn more about him, how to follow him. And so it's like, all right, well, if you're not going to do that, what are you going to do that? Maybe it's a one-on-one thing. Maybe it's very informal, something in your neighborhood. Maybe it's you're helping out with the youth group like Andy does, you know, and Austin and me, or who knows what it might be, but we're all called to that. So that is not a giftedness thing. Whereas there are other things that are more about gifting.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people that I would never ask to be on stage because that's not their gifting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like it's just, that's not who they are.
Right.
You know, we all know a guy by the name of Adam Woolheis. If I try to get him to do anything upfront leading,
Nope.
he's going to say, can Andy do it?
Or he's like, I'm busy that day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sick.
So there absolutely is a gifting to this as well. So I'd like to ask you guys a flip of that story. What is a scenario or a situation where you were served by someone else in a very impactful way? I'll share one while you guys are thinking. Okay. When we were in Myrtle Beach, I've shared this story probably years ago now. When we were in Myrtle Beach, one of our sons got pneumonia so bad that his O2 levels were actually scary. And so we took him to the ER. And then there were individuals in our church who came and visit us in the hospital. There were individuals who brought us meals because Jenna was staying overnight with him and I was trying to take care of the rest of the boys. And there were people who checked in on us. There were people who brought us gifts. During that time of need, people rallied around us and it was so impactful for us because it was a pretty big church, and big churches have this reputation of like, oh, they don't really care. Now, granted, I was a pastor on staff, but still they didn't have to do all those things. And they really did go above and beyond, even to the point that the church actually helped pay for part of our medical bill because we couldn't afford it all. And so it was huge to just see the church and the people of the church rally around us in that way. We were very blessed. How about you guys?
I've been very blessed that we haven't had to deal with something like that. But I would say after Angie and I kind of led the youth group for a bit, and then when Josh came in, Josh Ritchie, that's where I felt like, okay, somebody's trying to serve me and make me feel like what I did mattered, but also like I'm not going to let this fall apart, and like, you know, just very, you know. And so when you've gone through something, like you said, I had no idea what I was doing. I was not called to be. I've joked with many people. I'm like, nope, I'm called to be a youth leader, not a youth pastor. And being thrust in that, I'm like, messages were horrible. Thankfully, Tanner Bohan came along because I'm like, go right ahead, buddy. Because I'm good at getting people hyped. I'm good at leading game and doing this stuff. It's just some things I'm not as good at because I don't have to do it as often. But so that was one major moment. Was right after that where I was like, good, I'm done. And then I was like, God's like, you're not done with youth yet. And because I was kind of thinking like, maybe I'll just take a step back because it's been a while and that's a lot. Yeah. And then Josh was just like, you know, and it just came along and I was like, okay, I feel rejuvenated. I feel like somebody's serving me and trying to help me do what I'm called to do. So it was very helpful.
For sure.
I'll speak really quick only because
we probably have time for
Darren and I have to
say,
go in about a minute or less than a minute or so. Similar to youth group, the people that actually led youth group when I was growing up had a massive impact on my life, and the way that they were able to serve and help be of a blessing to me during that time period was awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you two got to get going. So see you guys later. Wave on your way out. All right. So, you know, this whole idea of being served it can be humbling. It
Mhm.
can be, it for some of us, it's not why we come to the church.
Dude, no way.
Like it's not what we're expecting. And so when that happens, it's a different feeling. But this is an encouragement to some of you as well, because I know there are those of you who are like hesitant to ask for help or receive help. One of the things that we need to remember is that sometimes when other people are trying to help us, that is their way to use their gifts and to serve God. I had to learn this early on in my marriage because we were dirt poor. I need to make sure I don't rob people of their ability to serve God with their lives as well. So that's just the flip side of this, to remember like, hey, people are here to serve you as well. We don't want to expect it or to demand it necessarily, but we're all in this together.
Yep.
I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about being a part of this church. And so, and about the larger church as well. So anyway, we're going to wrap things up. We're so glad that you guys decided to tune in with us. If you have any questions about anything we've discussed today, if you have any questions about how you could get involved as a volunteer with our church, using your gifts, your abilities, your passions, we would love to be able to help you with that. You can either contact us directly by shooting us an email or filling out a Connect card, or you can sign up for our Next Steps class. That's exactly what that class is designed for. But if you have questions about anything and you just don't want anybody to know who you are, we do have an anonymous question tab that you can put questions about literally anything on there. But again, I always say this, if you want us to follow up with you, make sure you fill out the Connect card instead, because when you fill out the anonymous question form, it is anonymous. So we won't know who you are. So thank you guys for being a part of it. Typically we answer those questions at our midweek Q&A that comes out on Thursdays on our YouTube and Facebook pages. And so you can find a lot of those answers to those questions on that podcast. So thank you guys so much for being here. We want you to know that we love you, but more importantly, God loves you too. We'll see y'all later.